All right, hello everyone, and good morning. I would like to welcome everybody to this June 4th, 2020 Smyrna Business Association virtual program. It is now called to order. I would like to invite Associate Pastor from River City Church, Jordan Craig, for the invocation.
Thank you all for the opportunity to pray with you this morning. So let's pray. So God, we thank you that we're able to gather today virtually and invite your Spirit into this meeting. We are all members of a special community here in Smyrna. We celebrate that the web of relationships that make this city great is not bound by physical spaces. We acknowledge that many of us sitting in our offices and homes right now are hurting, not knowing if our businesses will survive, trying with every ounce of our mental capacity to protect the health of our citizens. Our eyes are even strained as we enter another video call. It all feels so weighty. Yet at the same time, it also seems so petty compared to the sufferings of our community. The financial burden of our low-income neighborhoods, the mourning over the loss of life without the ability to physically comfort the hurting, the racial injustice that won't quit and spills its blood on our streets, the riots that try to put words to pain in ways that cause even greater unrest, and our officers are risking their lives daily as they attempt to enact justice. These are disorienting times and we feel pain, yet we can't dismiss it. We carry weight, but we can't put it down. We hear the hurt and we can't close our ears. But God, we sit with you in this moment and we let the dust settle. We take deep breaths. We calm our minds and slow down and acknowledge that we just miss one another. We miss family, we miss friends, we miss our community. And that is love. Love that unites us, love that listens, love that feels, love that hurts, love that misses people when it is easier to just give up. The night before Jesus bore his cross, he prayed, "Father, if you are willing, remove this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done." This cup of pain is not passing from us. It is an invitation to love despite the hardship. So we pray for renewed strength to keep going, to not shy away from the hard stuff, and open doorways for healings in our land. So we thank you today for our local leaders who are present that fight and advocate for the good of all citizens. We thank you for the small business owners that work tirelessly to navigate a rapidly changing economic climate while attempting to serve the people of our city. May you open our eyes to see our neighbors with a vision towards mercy and sacrifice, to lessen our fame, showcase our brokenness, and give our lives for the sake of each other. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Jordan. And now I would like to invite Fire Chief Roy Acree for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Thank you, Nick. If you would, please all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now, Sarah Sorensen, please recognize the Smyrna Business Association Board of Directors and give us any announcements and updates.
Sure. Thank you, Nick. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to take a moment to recognize the board members of the Smyrna Business Association. Everyone has been working really hard to continue to offer virtual programming for everyone during this time of social distancing. We really look forward back to the time when we can all get back together in the same place. And we are watching county and state and city guidelines on that, and we'll keep you updated on that as soon as we are able. We expect that programming for the month of June will continue to be virtual. Our next coffees are on our calendar, June 10th and June 24th. You can join us via Zoom for those. I want to bring your attention to a couple of other announcements. We continue to update our COVID-19 resources page on our website. including a new, very important program from Cobb County. The Cobb County Commissioners voted to give $50 million worth of grants to small businesses. The program is going to be administered by Select Cobb. And if you go to Select Cobb / grants, and the link is also on our COVID-19 resources page, you will find all the information that you as a small business need to know about applying for this program. The applications open on June 8th. And there is a webinar on June 10th to explain the program and help you through the application process. Applications close June 26th. This is not a first come, first serve program. It is a competitive program. So put together a best application and be sure to use all the resources on Select Cobb and the Cobb Chamber to put forth your best information to get that those grants. I'd like to invite everyone who has not yet joined the Smyrna Business Association. Please do. Our membership is prorated at $75 for the rest of the year. It helps us to continue to offer programs like this, offer scholarships and to local students, and continue to support the community through community initiatives. To continue to get information about Smyrna Business Association, you can follow us on social media on Facebook or Instagram, or text the word Smyrna to the number 63975. We'll text you periodically to remind you about upcoming events that you can join in on. And we really look forward to continuing to connect virtually and looking forward to the day when we can do so in person again. Thanks.
Sarah, thank you so much. And now I would like to invite Steve Gardner to discuss sponsorships.
Thank you, Nick. We are in the annual sponsor drive at this point. Sponsorship for the SBA really is the major funding engine for the organization. It allows us to do the scholarships, which we're going to hear more about this year's scholarships from Georgia here in a few minutes. We also do other donations throughout the year. One of the most notable this year was computers for Campbell students during COVID-19. That was funded by the scholarship program. So some statistics, we're limited to 24 sponsors, maximum 2 per industry. The fee is $500 a year. The benefits are pretty substantial. I personally think that it's the best deal going in sponsorship when you look at different organizations. We have the banners that travel to 40 plus events through a normal year, monthly luncheon sponsorship, and today's sponsor is Kathy Lipsett from the Bright Side. So that's included in the sponsorship as well. You also get a sponsor listing on the SBA website and a monthly luncheon for one of your team members. So the application process and timing is that we opened the renewal process for the current sponsors, and we've had a good response from current sponsors. Thank you very much to the folks who have indicated that they are going to sponsor again for next year. The wait list for new sponsors is now open. The way to apply for that and get on the wait list is to send an email to sponsorship@smyrnabiz.org. That will come directly to me and we'll put you on the wait list. All new applicants are vetted by the board, so we will do that as a board on June the 17th. So now is the time, if you've been thinking about it, to get on that wait list, and we appreciate all the new potential sponsors who have joined that wait list. Back to you, Nick.
Thank you so much, Steve. I definitely appreciate that. And now at this time, pass the baton over to Kathy Lipsett, to one of our esteemed sponsors, to talk about the Bright Side.
Thank you so much, and it's good to be with you all, even if it is virtually. First, I just want to take a moment of privilege to thank everyone in the Smyrna Business Association who have been so kind and so sustaining as I said goodbye to Alan in January. Not only did I say goodbye, but we all said goodbye. And your heartfelt grief joined mine and my family, and has just been so touching. And the Smyrna Business Association meant so much to him. And he had signed us up to be a sponsor originally in February. And the reason for February is that 16 years ago in February, we published our first edition of The Bright Side. And we had owned weeklies before, but this was our first monthly. And we deliberately chose Smyrna as the place because it was such a good community, and we just related to it and just felt like that was the place we needed to be. And so for 16 years, jointly, we published The Bright Side and have watched it flourish and grow because of good people like you who have sent us news and advertising and helped to sustain it. The question I'm asked a lot now when I see people or virtually see people is, will the paper continue? And I want to assure everybody that as hard as it is to just continue life without Alan, we were married, let me just throw this in, for just short of 48 years. And a lot of that time we had worked together and done everything together. But I am determined that the paper will continue. It has published every month this year, and I'm currently working on the June edition. Last month, the May edition was a little bit smaller. I only had 12 pages. So earlier in the year, they've been 16, and this one will probably be 12 as people are finding it more difficult to advertise and for me to get the news that I need. But people have reached out. We have such good news stories. The May paper, and I forgot to pick it up and have it here in my office to show you, but I have a young lady that from Campbell, oh no, she's a St. Benedict student, who was making masks for people and using it as a fundraiser to help feed the hungry. The April issue, I featured the WellStar Health Systems workers, the heroes who are helping to keep people well and to keep our community going. So there's just lots of good news. I have more good news coming up in the June issue, and there's still time. I'm a little behind when I normally would come out, but there's still time for anybody to send me news or advertising. I would love to have some more advertising. But I also welcome the news, good news stories, because they abound. This, I don't know if y'all can see this. This is the email address and the web page and the phone number. If you have a pen, write it down. But be sure the Cobb is in there, Bright Side Cobb, because there is another Bright Side in Kennesaw, and I want to be sure you direct it to the Smyrna one. So, but the paper continues. And I'm continuing, and I keep saying we because I feel Alan's Spirit's still with me, and it's still we. We'll continue the Bright Side and telling your stories, your good news, and the Smyrna story, and all of the good things that are going on. So thank you, and I look forward to continuing working with you for many years to come.
Thank you so much, Kathy. You got me here fighting back tears now. I just wanted to read a couple of comments that were coming through. The people were just saying, we miss Alan too, Kathy. Thank you for sharing your story. People are saying, Alan was a great man, and we appreciate the family continuing to keep this paper going. It's a wonderful resource. So I can just tell you from the Smyrna Business Association, there are so many stories of people who advertise in the Bright Side and seen wonderful results with it. So if there's anybody who's trying to figure out where to put their money locally to advertise their businesses, the Bright Side is a wonderful resource. So thank you so much, Kathy.
Well, thank you all. And it's, Alan was so respected by all of you, and it's really good that his memory will live a long time with Smyrna Business Association.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Now I will have Chief Roy Acree of the Smyrna Fire Department to come up to give a Smyrna update.
Thank you, Nick. So I was just realizing this morning when I was logging in here that the last time we were all together in person, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe was the last in-person SBA meeting, and we're certainly all looking forward to the day where we can all get back together again in person. And I think that day is, sooner rather than later. As you can imagine, and I've got some specific updates for you, about cities, what's going on with the city. But as you can imagine, just like every business and every local government, we've been, closely monitoring the data with regard to COVID and letting that data, whether it's good or bad, inform the decisions, that we've had to make. And as you're all aware, we've had to shutter a significant amount of services that the city typically offers on a blue sky day. Well, we're kind of encouraged by what's happening with the overall decline in the data in the Georgia state numbers, specifically with COVID. While we are seeing a decline, it's not a sharp drop off, but it is a steady and predictable overall decline. The rate of spread right now is a whole lot better than it was just a few months ago. So again, we're just really encouraged by what's going on. And because of that, we've began to reopen some of those services that we had to shutter. We've got all city staff that we had working from home. We've got everybody back in the office this week full time. And over the next few weeks, you're going to see some city facilities begin to open back up to the public. Things like the front doors to City Hall, so that if you need to go in and pay your water bill instead of using the drive-through, that's going to be available very soon. Of course, our parks, our outdoor parks are already open. Playgrounds and pavilions were open early this week. You're going to see the library begin to have limited services inside their facility over the next few weeks. While I'm on the library, Mary wanted me to mention that the library is going to be hosting a visit from WorkSource Cobb Mobile Career Clinic. They're going to have that on Wednesday, June the 10th from 10 to 2 out in their back parking lot. But over the next few weeks, you're going to start to see the city start to reopen and reestablish some of those services that we've had to provide or that we've had to shutter. And finally, I wanted to mention the Support Smyrna effort. I know that I'm sure that everybody has heard of it. You're familiar with it. Probably most, if not all of you, have supported that, and that's very much appreciated. But just in case you haven't heard of it, Support Smyrna is a way that citizens in Smyrna can donate to support those that are facing financial hardships, specifically support them by providing them gift cards to grocery stores. And I want to mention it because it's been wildly successful, and thank you to everybody that supported that. It's been so successful that the folks that are overseeing Support Smyrna have decided to open those available resources up to employees of Smyrna businesses, even if those employees don't live in the city of Smyrna. So if you have, or if you know of a business that's had employees that maybe they had to lay off or really negatively affected financially by what's been happening over the last few months, please, have them reach out to those folks. They've got their own website, supportsmyrna.org, and they've extended that support to employees of businesses in Smyrna as well. So if, just like always, no matter who's doing the announcements, if any one of us on staff here at the city of Smyrna can ever be of assistance to any of you, you know how to get in touch with you. I think most of you have my cell phone, and that's been by design, so please don't ever hesitate to reach out. But we're just looking forward to the day where we can start opening stuff back up again, and hopefully we'll see you all in person soon. And that was it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief Erick. And at this time, I will like to invite Georgia Sangster to discuss our scholarship recipients for this year.
So sorry. There we go. Hey, everyone. So I have been looking forward to, by the way, Kathy, thank you so much. Alan meant a lot to all of us as well. So anyways, with that, Alan, I know did a lot with the Campbell High School, and y'all have been the local community school. So really excited about this. I've been thrilled. My dad actually graduated from Campbell High School back in 1973. So there's a little bit of a heritage here. But with much avail and hard work from these students, we're really excited to present the scholarships this year. So special thanks to the Education Committee members and the team that helped select the recipients of the 2020 SBA scholarships. So this is part of the money that is spent for the sponsors, is spent for our kids that are looking to pour into their own businesses for the future. So it was really tough this year. There's very successful teams, sorry, I got some bugs around, very successful applicants who've worked really hard and have a future for business. So with that, it is a joy to be part of this process for future business makers. So one of the recipients for the scholarships, I loved this guy, it's really great. So in second grade, he watched a YouTube video to learn to crochet so that he could make his grandmother scarf for Christmas. This prototype was also a special gift that was intended, but the next dozen he made were to start a very successful business for someone who had mapped out a new pattern, and he mapped out new patterns and ideas and needed rides to craft stores for supplies. During the process, he was allowed to sit in front seat of the car, and he started selling scarves, animals, hats, baby blankets, as well as original patterns. And he realized it was very marketable, and he had a passion that ignited to start a business. It was just that, but it was the future. So a teacher wrote about this, about our winner. He is truly one of the most well-rounded students I've ever taught. And once in a while, young people fit into the jack of all trades. And he is a mastery of all of them. So I was very impressed with reading his essay. He organized a prom for our special needs students. He is an in-demand tutor for a number of subjects. He served on our IB leadership team. He was also a costume mascot and completed his Eagle Scout project in middle school. That is no small feat. That is hard. So we are excited to present Lucas San Miguel with a $1,500 scholarship as he attends Emory University in the fall. So congratulations, really impressed. Our next recipient has a big dream and a willingness to rise to a challenge that she chose to take more advanced courses during her junior year. During high school, she was sought after as a collaborator because of her common knowledge in school and community of her extraordinary talents. She is also involved in the Campbell High School community. Her academic success has allowed her to become part of the National Honor Society, as well as becoming an intern for our very own SBA. Yay. She's also chosen to devote her extracurricular time to be a leader in the Campbell High School Film Club, and has built her own business, Streetlight Films and Outflank. She recently won an award for Best Business pitched through the Future Business Leaders of America, and she still finds time to work part-time at Chick-fil-A. Where these kids have time, I do not know. So she is passionate to pursue a business of her own and become her own boss. So we are excited to present $1,500 to Olivia Fransco, and she'll be attending Georgia State College in the fall. Well done. So we're really excited for you. Our last recipient is a diligent student who loves to learn and has a passion for serving her community. She is highly motivated, hardworking, and compassionate. I was very impressed with you. She's held several leadership positions in groups and then served the community as a student leader. In 9th grade, she received a top freshman award. In 11th grade, she received the Georgia Certificate of Merit. She's also recently inducted into Osborne's High School National Honor Society. She is currently the 12th grade Student Government Associate, Vice President for Osborne High School. During her 11th grade year, she served in SGA's Junior Class President. She is also currently Vice President, or until graduation, for Osborne High School. She is a strong leadership, and last summer she was selected to participate in the American Legion Auxiliary Girls State, which is a program that teaches young ladies about policymaking at the state level. She's also a board member for the GLINC, a nonprofit organization geared towards helping Hispanic students excel in high school and prepare them to reach their goals for attending college. Reaching college is a lot tougher these days. So you have to do so much. And she realized that at a young age. I was just impressed watching her realization and pushing as hard as can be. So outside of school, she's also served in her community. She volunteered in retirement homes, family church events, food sales, fundraisers, and local church ministries. And she's also dedicated to helping homeless families. So she is working hard to pursue her own business one day as an accountant. We are excited to present Jennifer Casa with $1,500 scholarship as she attends University of Georgia in the fall. So you're going to be a Bulldogs fan. Alrighty. So last but definitely not least, we have a new award for this year. So we want to commemorate Max Bacon's leadership and just the principles that he has served Smyrna for over 38 years. And by doing this, we've come up with the Max Bacon Leadership Principal Award. And so this award is presented to one of Campbell's high school students for exhibiting his leadership and love for local community, as Max has, and as a graduate of Campbell High School in 1966. So the community award has multiple donors in our community. So it wasn't just the Smyrna Business Association, it was more members. So we are excited to present this award to a lady who served as a role for Max, the mayor pro tem for Smyrna Youth Council and a committee chair for the Student Government Association. She worked with students across Cobb County in order to learn more about government that leads this city, its departments, and met with many local leaders. Upon COVID-19 and seeing the impact on the community, the members of the Smyrna Youth Council worked to contact local businesses about their resources that were available. So Max Bacon cared deeply for his local community and Smyrna's ever-growing ambition, which is why Sashi Joshi, I hope I'm saying your name correctly, has earned her award as someone who's demonstrated the spirit of the leadership as Max Bacon. So job well done to all you students who've worked really hard. We look forward to watching you grow from a distance and hopefully come back to Smyrna and start your own businesses. So well done.
Georgia, thank you so much for that. And at this time, we're going to start our panel. And our moderator is Travis Lindley. He is the councilman for Ward 3. He was first elected in 2019, and his term started this year. Our panelists are Senator Jen Jordan, Representative Erick Allen, and Representative Teri Anulewicz. And at this time, I'll pass the microphone over to Councilman Travis Lindley.
Thank you, Nick, and good afternoon, everyone. It's good to be with you, albeit virtually. Still good to see everybody. First, I want to thank our three elected officials at the state level for joining us today. We know, even though we're still somewhat housebound these days, we know everybody's very busy, so I appreciate you all making some time for the SBA. I would acknowledge Mayor Norton is on the line, as well as our city administrator, Tammy Sadler-Jones, and other city officials, and just never want to miss an opportunity to thank our city staff for the wonderful job they do and certainly have done through a very trying time on many fronts. But it's an honor to be here today and serve as the moderator. I'm a proud member of the SBA with some businesses here locally, and always good to see everybody moving together. As many of you may know, just to sort of set the stage for our conversation, the Georgia General Assembly, in an unprecedented move and in unprecedented times, suspended its activity on day 28 back on March 12th, which Jen, Teri, Erick, that seems like it was maybe 3 years ago. But we were at day 28. For those of you not in the legislative realm, that was the crucial day where bills must cross the Chamber of Origin in order to complete the legislative process and make it to the governor by the end of a 40-day legislative term. Usually the General Assembly here concludes its work by the end of March, 1st of April. Obviously, with the 100-year pandemic that set in, all activities ceased, and for a good time, it wasn't clear other than handling the one thing that the legislature is mandated by Constitution to handle, which is our balanced budget. Reassumed that they would come back in, but as late as yesterday, I guess we got final word that both the House and the Senate will resume the legislative session on June 15th. There are 11 days left, and still waiting on some clarity from leadership on what all will move. In a normal year, we would pick up with all bills that had crossed to the opposite chamber. This is the second term of the legislature, so there's bills left over from last year as well as earlier this year. So a lot of bills that I know my friends here on the line have been working on, but we're anxious to see the legislature get back to work, first and foremost tackling the budget, and then moving their way through priority legislation. Of course, again, Jen, Teri, Erick, priority legislation is a funny thing because everybody's priorities are a little bit different. So that'll be the key, is receive what gets tackled and sent on to the governor to be signed into law. But with that, to sort of open things up, it might be good for us to share and hear from our legislators as to what you all have been up to since the outbreak of COVID, and then obviously recently with the tragic death of George Floyd. Just some opening thoughts as we begin our dialogue today. Jen, I'll put you on the spot first as our senator.
Great. Thank y'all for having me. You know, the biggest thing that I've been working on, I'm on the Appropriations Committee in the Senate, is dealing with the budget issues. You know, the governor and the various budget heads requested that the agencies come forward with 14% across the board cuts. And those are incredibly significant and are going to impact basically everybody at every level. And so that's basically where I've been, just trying to figure out where we can save jobs, because we're talking about firing 50 district attorneys across the state, 70 staff attorneys. You know, we're in a pretty dire economic situation in terms of revenue. So the question is, how can we get revenue in so that we don't have to do such extreme cuts? Because I think what we really need to make sure is that we keep people employed, we keep people, you know, paid at the level they need to be paid, because right now it's not the time we need to be kind of pushing people out to the unemployment lines. So that's basically where my focus has been. Obviously, with everything going on with the Ahmaud Arbery case, looking into kind of, you know, prosecutorial abuse, and then of course George Floyd, which is, you know, just kind of continued, you know, a lot of the feelings that we've all been having. So, you know, that's basically where I am right now. But we've got a lot of hard work ahead of us, you know, to get done in just 10 days.
Very good. Teri?
Hey, yes, I am. You're right. It seems like we were last at the Capitol 3 years ago. It's definitely a lifetime ago. You know, yes, it is. So the budget, you know, we're talking about now 11% cuts instead of 14% cuts. We've got to remember 11% is still a staggering amount. That's an amount of money that we are going to really feel in Cobb County. Our schools is just one way we're going to feel those cuts. And one thing that's important when you talk about cuts to school, cuts to what teachers might be paid, furlough days, it's important to remember that Cobb County School District is, I think, the biggest employer in Cobb County. So the paychecks that they write to their employees, whether it's teachers, whether it's staff, that's an important part of our economy, and that's an important part of the money that ends up being spent with small businesses in Smyrna and in Cobb County. So that's something to really keep in mind when we talk about these budget cuts and how they're going to trickle down into our economy in Cobb. You know, I was also working on a couple of transportation things prior to when we, and Travis, I can talk about those now or get into those later if you'd like, but.
Hold that thought. I'm going to
Okay,
get
perfect.
to what we were working on versus what we're going to work on here in
Perfect,
the
yeah.
next couple of days. All
And
right.
so yeah, no, really just, the budget was the biggest thing we were doing before, and now it's also the biggest thing we're doing.
Even bigger.
Even bigger.
Very good. Thank you, ma'am. Representative Allen.
Yeah, well, thank you guys for having this forum today. The kind of like my colleagues, the biggest thing has been thinking through the budget, what those impacts will be. At a time where we're in a series of crisis, we have to be really mindful of how we make these cuts, especially the education, healthcare, and law enforcement, as Jen talked about with the DAs. Right now, where public safety and law enforcement is front of mind, I think it's going to be a very difficult time to explain to people, why DA offices are being dismantled across the state. So I think that's something to be that we're all very, very vigilant of. I would say during this time, I've spent a considerable amount of time on constituent outreach, and I'm sure every colleague has. It's been a very unprecedented time, not only with members of this group know more than anyone that access to capital right now through PPP, trying to figure out how to adjust your business plans and your strategies to stay afloat, how to keep your employees and their families whole. It's been a challenge. So I've spent a lot of times connecting constituents with economic development, with chamber resources, with Department of Labor resources, so they can file and get unemployment. So I think we've just been in very unprecedented times where I can say I've probably been busier doing that than I have what was during session. It's been a very, very busy time with constituent outreach. So that's taken pretty much a lot of the gap from when we suspended to now. Also, as we talked about, the current events, there's been a lot of talk about the hate crime bill. There's been a lot of talk, about resolutions and things being passed. But once again, I just think we need to be extremely thoughtful of how we approach. There's no magic bullet, as much as we need to pass the hate crime bill, I don't think that that's where it needs to stop. We need to have comprehensive conversation about policy reforms and really evaluating all of our systems to root out unconscious and conscious bias that's included. So it's a lot of work to be done, not just in these 10 days, but in the next couple of years.
Great. Well, thank you much. Apologize. My oldest dachshund, Zeus, wanted to chime in on what everybody had been doing in the COVID time. So apologize for that. I guess is a twofold question as we pick up with the legislative session in about a week and a half. Share with us, if you will, what all you had been working on prior, what legislation was in the queue leading up to crossover day, and what you all as legislators will be working on in the balance of the 11 days with legislation that you might have sponsored. I know all of you have some legislation that directly ties to our community. So with that, sort of maybe a look back as well as a look forward. And Representative Allen, this time let's start with you.
Yeah, so one of the biggest things that I was working on prior to crossover day was the ethylene oxide issue with Sterigenics, which has really impacted a lot of people. And now that we've gotten tax bills, I know people have had some questions about the 10% reduction in their property values if you live within a certain radius of the facility. So it's even more important going in. I can tell you that so there were three different pieces of the package or bills that I presented. One of them was just a resolution for a study committee. I think that is more important now than ever. I'm going to look at ways to change that just a little bit so it's not a bicameral Senate and House study committee, but maybe just a House. That way it doesn't have to cross over. Because right now with the lawsuit that came out about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, there's still a lot we need to learn about ethylene oxide in Georgia, where it is, what the impact is, how we're curtailing it, and really come up with some broad policies of how to address it to make sure our neighborhoods, our school playgrounds, our parks are all safe. So that resolution, I'm going to be continuing to work on that, but just as a House study committee, as I said, so it doesn't have to cross over. There was also a piece of legislation that would require any unpermitted or accidental release of ethylene oxide to be reported. That was passed in the House and Senate as different bills. So there are 3 bills floating out there, but we did get one House version passed as well as a Senate version that are very identical. The hope is that when we get back, those can be enjoined. We can figure out which one will be finalized and sent to the governor for signature. Considering that governor floor leaders sponsored both of the bills that passed, I'm pretty confident that we can get that through and get it to the governor's desk to be signed. And then there's also a more comprehensive reporting and emission of ethylene oxide bill that did not cross over. So we're going to have to continue to work on that. And hopefully in the next biennial, we'll be able to get some work done on that one. Outside of the ethylene oxide, there are a couple of 3 other bills that I was working on that I think are good just for awareness bills. There was a license plate bill for the Georgia recovery community. I'm a big advocate of addiction and recovery. I think that, we need to look at it as the illness that it is and destigmatize a lot of the things that we have around recovery, substance use disorders, mental health. So that would bring awareness to that. And also locally, it's a longer haul and it'll probably go into the next couple of years, but we're also looking at doing the same thing for the Covered Bridge historic area. I know they reached out and wanted to have some support so we can really bring some awareness and try to fund some of the efforts that they have through some different channels as well. And then also have a resolution, an urging resolution on adult changing stations, something that's a very unknown issue that a lot of people may not even be aware of. But if you have an older child or an adult with a severe disability, and you are trying to care for them outside of the home, it's very difficult in a public restroom to do that without having an industrial or an adult changing station available. And so I'd really like to push and urge public facilities and private facilities, large venues, to consider putting those in to accommodate, our Georgians with disabilities. So those are some of the things that I was working on and continue, some things I can continue to work on that don't necessarily need to cross over.
Great, thank you, sir. Just a point of clarification. So the both bills, or all 3 bills for on ethylene oxide, they've crossed. No, the Senate version.
Only one. The one that requires the unpermitted release is the only one that passed. And that was a fight, because what was done is they stripped the language of my bill and took out the mandatory reporting part to the public, to where it would only be reported to EPD. But in order for the public to find out there was a release, they would have to do an open records request. So it was putting the burden on the community to find out what was going on. And we were finally able to negotiate to get all of the language put back in and keep it whole. And I will say that there were 2 instances since we've been in adjournment or in suspension where there have been accidental releases at the Sterigenics plant. And this language was put into the consent agreement for them to reopen. So we know that it's going to work, because there are 2 instances where we found out that there have been accidental releases that we would not have if we still had the 10-pound threshold. So I'm hoping that we can put that through, especially considering now that the consent agreement has been abandoned. We're going to need to codify that so that we can make sure that our community is aware of what's going on.
And Representative Allen, the bill as it currently stands is in what committee? What can people do that are on the line here if they're interested in terms of reaching out to folks?
Yeah, right. It's going to be in natural resources on both sides. Senate Bill 426 and House Bill 937. Just, if you are interested in calling into those committee members and letting them know that you'd like to see those bills move through committee. So, call the Senate about HB 927 and the House about SB 426. But yeah, I think that would be very helpful. And like I said, it's a priority of the governor's floor leaders to get that passed. So I'm hopeful that that's one of the few bills that we get to see move through when we get back.
Good deal. Thank you much. Representative Anulewicz, what, just as a reminder, the 2-part question, what were you working on in terms of legislation you might have been sponsoring and then looking ahead?
Absolutely, thank you. So one of the bills that I'm very proud to be a co-sponsor on is House Bill 511, and that is a bill that the goal, we passed legislation in the previous and 2018 that really it created the ATL and addressed how we can better fund transit in Metro Atlanta. And House Bill 511 then approaches transit in rural Georgia, which is important to us in the metro area. I mean, I think we've seen how what happens in our rural economy really makes an impact on what happens with us here in Metro Atlanta. So that bill, Chairman Kevin Tanner, he's the chairman of the House Transportation Committee, has been leading the conversations and the negotiations with that bill in the Senate, and making sure that one of the key provisions in that bill is the rideshare fee. So early in the original part of the session, we passed a bill which is called the Marketplace Facilitator Bill. Basically what that bill did was it added taxes to all online purchases. The intent is to have a level playing field for local businesses here in Georgia, make them level with big online platforms, and make sure that those online platforms are paying their state taxes, because that money was being left on the table. We were losing a lot of revenue, and as we've discussed, we need all the revenue we can get right now, especially from places that should have been paying taxes in the first place. One of the impacts, though, of the Marketplace Facilitator Bill is it had also, sorry, I'm reading three things at once to make sure I'm giving you all the right facts, because this happened so many months ago. One of the repercussions of the Marketplace Facilitator Bill is Georgia will now have the highest rideshare tax in the country, and that's not a good thing. And so part of House Bill 511 sets a flat 50-cent per ride fee for general rides, 25-cent rideshare fee for shared rides. This is something that Uber and Lyft agree on, and it would be a major reduction in what they pay, and in turn what riders, what we would pay under this Marketplace Facilitator Bill. So where that stands right now, going into the final part of the session, that bill is in the Senate. Chairman Tanner and other leaders in the House have been in conversations with the transportation leaders over in the Senate to make sure that we can come to a general agreement on this rideshare fee. And we're optimistic that the Senate's going to move quickly when we return to session. Now, what this rideshare fee would do is it would fund transit projects in rural Georgia, but also transit projects for the ATL. So that will have a direct impact for how we see transportation improvements happen here in Cobb County. So 511 is an important bill for us to watch. We have, there are freight and logistics legislation that's happening, but I think 511, and particularly that rideshare fee and how that rideshare fee will go to pay for tax for transit and directly fund transit in Metro Atlanta, is something that's going to be really important to watch. Of course, I agree with Representative Allen when we're talking about 426, the hate crime bill that's in the Senate right now. And he's right, bills and resolutions are great, but what really matters is what we then do after we pass these resolutions and after we pass this legislation. And I think that's something that we need to continue to have a lot of conversations on. And I think we need to also be really open to listen to a lot of the people. And when we are feeling uncomfortable in these conversations, it's critical that we take a moment to ask ourselves, okay, why do we feel uncomfortable? And then what can we do to change how we act in response to our discomfort?
Great, thank you, Teri. Just because it's one of the questions I was going to ask all of you to give brief thoughts, and then Senator Jordan will get to you on the look ahead and look back. But what are the chances that you think we will see the Senate take up the hate crime bill and see it through to final passage?
So with respect to the Senate, I think it depends. I mean, honestly, I think it's going to be about public pressure. The Senate Judiciary Committee was sitting on this bill. They've been sitting on it. They've refused to give it a hearing. It was clear that it wasn't going to get out of committee, ever. And then, because of the public pressure now, and because of the conversations we're having around, what's been happening, the heat's kind of been turned up a lot. And so you're starting to see the lieutenant governor make statements that he's open to getting something passed. You're hearing other Republicans say this is what we should do. But really it's going to come down to if there's enough pressure, put on, the lieutenant governor, the governor, and then Republican senators. The Democratic caucus is in favor of it. We've been in favor of it. There's actually a Senate bill that is a mirror bill of the one from the House, a companion bill that's been sitting there and never got moved. So if that's any indication. So I think it's going to take all of us just doing whatever we can to get this, over the finish line. But that's really what it comes down to. It's going to take a lot of public pressure and a lot of people kind of demanding that something be done.
Got that mute button. Thank you, ma'am. I guess if you'll talk for a moment about what you had been working on in terms of co-sponsoring legislation, and then what you plan to be working on in the final stretch.
So a couple of the areas that I've usually focus on and have in the past, deal with healthcare issues, and then also kind of the environmental issues. With respect to healthcare, I've filed legislation to extend Medicaid coverage to 12 months for pregnant women to try to deal with the issues we have with respect to maternal mortality in this state. We have the worst maternal mortality rate in the country. And all of the experts agree that if we extend that coverage for that 12-month period, that we're going to see that mortality rate just go down. So it seems like a no-brainer to me. I also filed a bill to cap out-of-pocket costs for insulin. And what it would do is it would cap the out-of-pocket cost for insulin to $100 per every 30 days. And so I was hoping that was going to get some legs. The chair of the insurance committee had filed a bill similar to that. But who knows now? And then finally, the final bill, which we also saw filed in the House, would require that coal ash be treated like any other solid waste. And as y'all know, we've been dealing with Sterigenics for a long time, but right next door is the Georgia Power Plant, where we have unlined coal ash ponds that are basically right there on the banks of the Chattahoochee. So really pushing that, but to be quite frank, I'm not sure how much is going to actually be able to get done. I know that the House has released its rules in terms of how they're going to proceed. The Senate has some guidelines too. And all of them kind of lead to a conclusion that there is going to be very little done that doesn't absolutely have to be done. So that's why I think that the budget is probably the big thing. Hopefully hate crimes. And that may be it.
Great, thank you much. I know, and each of you have sort of touched on the budget constraints and reality that the state is in. Certainly an unprecedented time and quite horrific as we look at state programs that in some cases at 14% or 11% on top of significant cuts over the last year will be greatly curtailed and in some cases probably suspended. Give us a few minutes and talk about what programs that you're looking at and sort of passions as you look at the budget that are in danger. Certainly with our friends here in the Smyrna business community, we're all keeping an eye on the local economy, making sure that our businesses here, not just in Smyrna and Cobb County, but around the state, remain vibrant and healthy as we power through, hopefully, this time in short order. But I know, Representative Allen, we'll start with you. One of in my real job, one of the areas that I have great concern for is in the mental health space, and certainly worry greatly about the crater that we're about to see with mental health funding. And I suspect everybody on this call can relate to the dreary days of the quarantine, where that was probably the biggest concern among many, was sort of the mental health crisis that is coming. So with that, Representative Allen, I'll kick it to you.
Yeah, so just for background, for people that don't know, I before I ran for office, I was Executive Director of Development for the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities. I've been a healthcare executive for about the last 20 years, most of it in post-acute care, mental health, and developmental disabilities. So that's the reason why I'm so passionate about a lot of this, and I dig in. One of the benefits we do have is that the director of the Department of Behavioral Health is a constituent and a resident of Smyrna. So we've got a good listening ear to that. But one of the things that I'm concerned about is they rolled out their proposal. Originally, it had about 75% cut to mental health and recovery, addiction recovery, mostly to preserve the funding that has to go into our mental health hospitals and things that were part of the settlement when the state was sued for violations of CRIPA, Civil Rights for Institutionalized Persons Act, and ADA. This goes back to 2010. It's a lot of I could talk on that for a long time, but I'll just say that there's some required funding that we have to keep intact based on that settlement, which is probably the reason why there's such drastic cuts in other areas of mental health. So once again, it's a balancing act. And that kind of leads into my overall position around the budget as we sit today is I think it's extremely irresponsible. First of all, it's a little bit lazy to say 14% cut across the board. There are certain things that just don't need as much funding as others. And we can't, as I said earlier, shoulder the brunt of this financial crisis on the back of education, healthcare, those things that are important right now. I think we need to have more of a deliberate approach. There's no reason why we should be funding convention centers at just a 14% cut when we know there's not going to be a conference at the World Congress Center for probably all of 2020 and probably into 2021. There are more reasonable things we can do within the budget. And so I am violently opposed to voting yes on a budget that does not take more of a pragmatic approach and does not even and does not also even consider an increase in revenue. There are, tobacco or calling it a nicotine tax, as Teri and I talked about yesterday, personally. I mean, there are ways that we can generate revenue. And if we don't even explore those, adjusting the film credits, there are a lot of places we can go. And also, we're going to have about a 2.9, I think is with the 11%, about a $2.9 billion gap in our budget. We've got a $3 billion rainy day fund. The rainy day fund should not be used to give back tax cuts. The purpose of the rainy day fund is so we don't have these horrible cuts to social programs that we need, like healthcare, like mental health, like education. So we have to have a real conversation about responsible cuts in the right way, not just an overall lazy, everybody give me 14 or 11%. We have to also talk about how do we increase revenues through means that are already there. Georgia has the 4th lowest tobacco tax in the country. Even if we raised it to the middle of that, we would be able to generate revenue and not put too much of a burden on those buyers. We also need to be looking at using a percentage, whether it's 20%, 25%, whatever it is, of the rainy day fund to shore up education and healthcare so that they don't take the drastic cuts. And then we can have some things to keep them whole. The other thing I would say about the budget is I'm also extremely hopeful. The HEROES Act has been passed in the U.S. House. It's stalled in the Senate, but a majority of that money, that package, is going to be to give the states relief. And right now, there's some senators who are saying states should go bankrupt. They shouldn't be bailing out states. I truly believe that we should be responsible and make sure that there is some way to make states not whole, but give them some relief so that these budget cuts are not drastic. We all know that once you start cutting these budgets, there are certain programs that will never see a full funding for the next 10 years. So we are treading dangerously close to eliminating funding on some very positive programs that support our cities, our counties, our school boards. We've got to make sure we don't have those cuts. It will be very, very tough to recover from that. So I'm hoping that the Senate at some point over the summer will pass that, and we'll be able to come back into a special session to appropriate those funds, and hopefully before school starts, make some of these budget holes full. So it's going to be tough, but I think it's a layered approach. And my main thing is I just can't support something as irresponsible as an across the board cut and no even conversation about revenue and rainy day fund.
Right.
Thank you. Excellent points. Representative Anulewicz, just some general high-level thoughts on the budget. I know you work a lot in the transportation realm. In addition to what your thoughts on the budget, maybe speak to some of the transportation projects that are ongoing or proposed and what that means with across the board cuts that Representative Allen, I think, hit some high-level points on that.
He did. Representative Allen explained, as always, explained everything very well and very thoroughly, particularly in how these what these cuts are going to mean. In terms of transportation projects, so GDOT, the Georgia Department of Transportation, does not cash flow projects. So any project that is in the works right now is completely unimpacted by the budget cut. So that the impact for Cobb County, the impact for Smyrna will most be felt by the 285 north end top end project and then going into 400. So they're not impacted. All of the money for these projects has already been set aside. So it's gonna be interesting. GDOT has, of course, I think wisely taken advantage of everyone being at home and of traffic being significantly lighter to go ahead with projects at an even more aggressive pace. And I think that that's something that's to our benefit. One thing we're going to start seeing, though, is because people haven't been driving anywhere. I know I filled my gas tank up, I think, once since the middle of March. Gas tax receipts are way, way down. So we're going to have to watch for how that's going to impact future projects. That, again, is how, you know, what I talked about going to House Bill 511, that's going to become really important also, you know, to find these new ways for how we fund projects. And while transportation, you know, transit is important, our roads and bridges aren't getting any younger. So it is important that we do continue to prioritize making sure we maintain our existing roads and bridges. But current projects with GDOT are not impacted whatsoever.
Great, thank you, ma'am. Senator Jordan, your thoughts on sort of the budget and where we're
I'm gonna piggyback on what Representative Allen said. Look, we've got to get revenue in, and so this whole idea that we're just going to do these across the board cuts and not actually even look at, you know, what makes sense in you know, today's kind of post-COVID world, that just doesn't make any sense. I mean, he was talking about the nicotine or the tobacco tax. I like to look at it as like a user fee. Look, the state of Georgia spends about $600 million every year in Medicaid dollars to treat tobacco-related illnesses. If we raised, you know, the tax or put, you know, kind of put this fee in place that just hits the median level, what Representative Allen was saying, that would take care of what the state is putting out with respect to these diseases. That seems to make sense to me. And I'm not sure why we're not looking at stuff like that, especially when we're having to make these draconian cuts with respect to education, pre-K, and we're talking about, you know, teachers are just going to have to sacrifice, work more, get paid less. That just doesn't make sense. So I think that we need to kind of push aside kind of the normal political things we say and do with respect to this, and then we just need to really take a common sense approach. I mean, at the end of the day, we've got to pay our bills, we've got to pay our people, and you know, that has to be the number one priority because our communities are hurting, and the last thing we need to do now as a state government is to make that even worse.
Thank you. A couple of questions that we've received thus far on the Q&A. For those of you that are joining, we're trying to address these as they come in, but two specifically related to the budget, and I'll just throw it out there, and y'all, one of you can grab it if you choose to. And the question is, what is going to happen with the teacher raises promised last year, I guess? What's your prognosis on that, and will it get rolled back, etc.?
So I'll just say that with respect to the last year's teachers raises, I mean, my guess is that those stay in place to some extent, but I think that the extension is not in the budget currently in the new one. But what we have to remember is that we've talked about these teachers' raises as if this money is going straight to the teachers. But with respect to that money, it went to the school systems basically with the direction that it be used for teachers' raises, but it doesn't have to be. So when you have a school system who is facing the types of cuts that we're dealing with in terms of QBE and the like, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, look, the money's going to have to be used to keep the lights on and, you know, just to kind of meet the minimal obligations that we have. So with respect to the teachers' raises, you know, I don't think there's going to be any more. Hopefully they can hang on to what they had. But other than that, I mean, that's what I think.
Yeah, I would add on that by saying right now, I'm more concerned about teacher unemployment and class sizes exploding than I am the raise. I mean, the raises, like Senator Jordan said, that money was funneled through the departments. And in the current situation they're in now financially with the cuts we're going to have at the state, I would almost assume that money is very unlikely, even if we appropriated it, to funnel to teachers for raises. So I think we need to focus more on making sure we keep the teachers whole and keep them in place, which is the more important priority right now.
Thank you. Before we move on, Representative Anulewicz, any thoughts on that, or has it been said by your two esteemed colleagues?
They have said it very well.
All right. The next budget-related question came from the audience. What is the progress or update on taxes from, say, Amazon or companies that are not required to give sales tax to the state?
Yeah, that's what Teri was talking about earlier, so I'll let her.
Yeah, that was addressed in that marketplace facilitator bill by Brett Harrell. So now that is and again, that was an example of you know, revenues, money that was out there that we were not collecting. So that has been taken care of.
And we're now collecting it, right?
Yes.
It's already, so that if not for that, we'd probably be in a worse position than we are now.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, that money's already started coming in.
Yeah, but in terms of how much it's going to be, we're not quite sure. I mean, the estimates range from 50 million to, you know, 300 million. But I'll have to say, thank God it got passed, because with people using Amazon and online shopping so much during the quarantine, I mean, that's the only business sector that actually kind of went up. Yeah. So, you know, hopefully that's going to help offset a lot of the other revenue losses.
Very good. Thank you all. And I guess,
yeah. Let's say one thing, this is a marketplace facilitated, but one thing I'll comment on is that, you know, there've been a lot of questions about how Hope's going to be impacted, and lottery sales are actually up from where they were a year ago. So we don't anticipate Hope revenues, you know, lottery revenues, which in turn becomes money that is used for the Hope Scholarship Program and for funding pre-K, that shouldn't be diminished. You know, I've heard folks talk about how we need to, you know, about cutting pre-K, and that doesn't really make sense to me, because pre-K is funded through lottery revenues, and lottery revenues are up.
Yeah, absolutely. Alcohol sales, tobacco sales, and lottery, those are the three areas of sales that have gone through the roof.
We're smoking, drinking, and gambling.
That's right. And at home.
Wisdom, wisdom, justice, moderation, and now it's lottery, smoke, and drinking.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hashtag quarantine.
2020.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Lord. One of the, I guess, as we transition away from a discussion on the budget, any thoughts, and I'm sure you all, like those of us at the municipal level, have heard and certainly seen the power of small businesses as they try and survive and endure and push through to the other side. Any efforts that you all have specifically, or that you're aware of, as the General Assembly picks up and moves, and even as we look ahead, as all of us do, to 2021 to get out of this year, in terms of relief to employers and businesses to keep our economy moving now that it's slowly sort of easing back to the new normal. I'll just throw it out there for all three of you.
So there's nothing specifically that I've heard of, but one thing that I do want people to kind of keep their ears open to is, so in every state kind of has a different way they deal with federal money. In some states like North Carolina or Michigan, it is for the legislature to allocate where federal funds go. In Georgia, we already have a very strong governor kind of system. And with federal money, it's even stronger. So the governor has complete control over the allocation of federal funds. So we know that there's going to be approximately $3.9 or $4 billion coming down to the state of Georgia with respect to COVID. And with the strings attached are that it has to be somehow related to something that's happened bad with respect to COVID. So I would expect that with that money, that there would be some grant programs set up. There would be some money that hopefully will get to small business owners. I mean, the governor has consistently talked about small business and how important it is with respect to our economy. So, you know, I look forward to seeing exactly, you know, what he's going to do with that money and specifically how we can get it, you know, to our small businesses.
It'll follow the process a lot like what the county has done with the Cobb Chamber and Select Cobb, where they'll be able to funnel, hopefully, like Senator Jordan said, funnel that money to the right organizations that are giving grants and relief to small business across the state.
Yeah, that's what we hope.
Yeah. We can only hope.
All right. Didn't want to cut anybody off. We have a couple of questions that have come in on two different subjects. We're down to about the final 8 to 10 minutes. We did want to save a moment at the end to Mayor Norton has joined and would like to address the group as well. So the final two questions, the first of those, in terms of education, any thoughts from the state level as we hear and sort of watch school systems react and prepare to reopen in the fall? Certainly that y'all know that that is a function of each school district, but anything at a state level in your vantage point as they sort of maneuver the tricky social distancing guidelines and all that comes with it.
As far as the funding, I'll address that part because it's important that the money from the CARES Act that the county has already gotten and that the school system has already gotten can help with some of the funding issues and the technology issues. And I know they're talking through those now of how to address that technology in the event that schools are forced to use more remote learning than in classroom learning. So some of that money is already funneled down. But as Senator Jordan said, there's also the possibility of even more funds funneling through the state into local districts who have been impacted by COVID and forced to use technology that did not have the infrastructure originally to facilitate. Because that was a lot of systems. I mean, Cobb is fortunate. A lot of counties, a lot of school systems were caught off guard and did not have the infrastructure, the capacity to quickly move from a classroom to an online environment. So there is a lot of work that needs to be done in coordination between the state and these local jurisdictions to shore that up.
Yeah, I know the Department of Education has put out some guidelines. There's a committee that was convened of folks from throughout the state that included teachers and administrators and folks from various areas to try to come up with them. And I think the Department of Education has slowly started to roll those out. You know, so we'll see. But
Yeah.
Obviously it's not a one size fits all kind of thing.
Yeah, on June 1st, the Department of Education issued their guidance, and it's important to note that when we say guidelines, these aren't mandates. These are, like Jen said, you don't have one size fits all. You have some districts that have the same number of kids that we might have at Campbell High School. And so I know that Cobb County District, specifically, they have, I think, at least 4 or 5 different working groups that are set up. And right now they are developing, I think, 5 separate plans for 5 different scenarios that we might be facing when it comes time to open these schools up in August. And I know that they're going to be rolling out more information as they have it. But I think it makes sense that they don't start telling people what they're thinking about doing before those plans are finalized, because we know, we saw when the CDC issued their guidance, what happened on social media when people started sharing memes talking about the regulations, making it sound like it was something that it really wasn't. There's a lot of local autonomy that districts have in the state of Georgia and in the United States, even as they're determining how they're going to move forward this fall for the opening of school. And I know that Cobb is working on it. And I know that I imagine we'll start hearing more about it. I would think mid to late July, because again, I think they're trying to have, there are a lot, just like when they didn't announce right away what their plans were for closing for quarantine, they had so many questions they needed to answer about transportation, about technology, about food service. And once they have all those ducks in a row, I think that's when they're going to come to the public and tell us what their plans are.
Right. Thank you all. And then as we move into the final question, and it comes from the audience, it was that there was hope that the elected officials would address the current demonstrations, how we support each other, and how we move forward. Before I throw it to you all for your thoughts, it was certainly a high honor and a proud moment of my hometown on Sunday to see the demonstration at Taylor Bronner with Representative Allen and others, and most of our council and mayor. So I believe Smyrna is doing what Smyrna does, which is to come together and try and address this head on and move us down the road. But with that, I'll open it up to you all as the final question.
So I'll just jump in first. Look, I think people are hurting, and I think that is why they're protesting. And I think we have to give people the space to do that, and to do it peacefully. I mean, obviously, kind of the looting aspect of stuff or the destroying of businesses, you know, that's not appropriate. And you know, it definitely crosses a line. But at the same thing, I think we absolutely need to give people the space, you know, to have their voices heard. And then secondarily, we really need to be working at a local level, which I know, you know, Smyrna City Council has been doing, and folks at the county level are doing, you know, to review some of the policies, some of the practices, you know, because clearly we've got an issue that needs to be dealt with.
Yeah, I would just echo what Senator Jordan said, and it's very important. And I've been extremely frustrated, hurt, anxious, scared, all of that over the last week and a half, really the last couple of months. And I've spoken on quite a few forums and where we've gone into details. But I'll just say that right now, to me, it's more important that our responses are measured and right, and not quick. We have to support the protesters, give them space, encourage some civility by not being confrontational. I think that these situations can easily get escalated unintentionally. And when you are talking to a group that is passionate and frustrated and angry and scared about police brutality, the worst thing to do is have them confronted with police who are being brutal, who are being aggressive. And I know it's a balance, and we have to do it, but I appreciate what the mayor of Atlanta has been doing, the police chief in Atlanta. I think overall everyone has reacted well, but we also need to make sure that we continue to do that, and we continue to listen to each other. I think the last part of that question, Travis, was what do we do to move forward, or how do we go forward? Just like in recovery, the first step to healing is acknowledgement, and we have to make sure that we are acknowledging it. And I applaud the city of Smyrna for what they've done, and they've led on the issue. But I really caution, as other cities and counties go into doing these resolutions, that we do them fully acknowledging what we're doing. As a Black man, it's not encouraging just to see someone say that a municipality or a county is against racism. That should be a given. We need to be more open and make sure that we are speaking specifically to what the issues are that the community is outraged about. So I think before we really get to move forward, we've got to really have the reconciliation, the conversation, and the acknowledgement that no one in the situation is perfect. No one in the situation is without flaw or error or unconscious or conscious policy biases, and we have to address that. And the more that we do that, I think we'll be able, it's not really ripping off a scab. We know that it's there. The outcry that you see right now is the lack of acknowledgement that it's there, and a rush for people, on the call that Lisa Cupid had earlier in the week, every city and the county all agreed to do these resolutions. And, my fear is that we do those without truly acknowledging that if everybody puts out a resolution that they hate racism and that everything is great, then that means no one's wrong. No one's got things to work on. And we just need to be conscious and knowledgeable and aware that there are a lot of things that we need to work on. Great.
Thank you all. And again, thanks to the SBA and to our elected officials for joining today. We know everybody's got a busy afternoon, so again, thank you all. And on behalf of my part with Ward 3 in Smyrna, if I can be of assistance, please don't hesitate to reach out. And at this time, I will hand the mic over to Mayor Norton, who has joined us for the closing remarks.
Thank you, Travis, and what a great forum. Appreciate y'all participating and the opportunity to say a few words at the end. I'll start just real quickly saying, look, I totally agree with Travis. I'm very proud of our city for, and the resolution, Erick was restating how the council feels publicly about racism that has no place in Smyrna. The peaceful event Sunday was great, and you're right. This is all those actions are just those are just words, and I've heard many times over the last little while, actions speak louder than words, and I understand that is the beginning of a longer, deeper conversation. And I just want everybody on this call who does business in the city of Smyrna or lives here know that my commitment as mayor of the city of Smyrna is to have those conversations that lead to change. And there's a lot of action items that are getting on a list of things from council, from our community, from our business community, and I'm looking forward to having those discussions. I wanted to, because this is a business crowd, I wanted to let everybody know that we have been very proactive in the city, reaching out to businesses in Smyrna with under 100 employees to let them know about the $50 million in grant money that the Commission and Cobb Chamber are working together to distribute. I did learn today, we had our staff reach out the Thursday before that commission meeting where they approved it. We had our staff reach out to over 3,000 businesses here in Smyrna to just give you all a heads up. And I know a lot of you were on that phone call and provide all of the information about application process and where to go and all that. And all that's on our website at smyrnaga.gov. But I learned today that the Chamber and the Commission is encouraging all of you who have already received PPE loans or SBA loans to go ahead and apply, even though they said initially that if you had gotten those, that you weren't eligible for any of this money. And it's $20,000 to $40,000 grants that they're talking about here. They want you to go ahead and apply because even if you've gotten those loans, there may be extra money available and it won't hurt to apply. So just please go through that application process. I'm pleased to say that Steve Ewing with Wade Ford is the chairman of the committee who's going to be looking at all of those applications, and just encourage you all to apply. And if there's anything that we can be doing as a city government to help you guys get through these tough times, whether it's water and sewer or license fees or any of those kind of things, just please reach out to me or our team, and we're glad to help wherever we can. Just appreciate the opportunity to be with you all today.
Mayor Norton, thank you so much. And to our panelists, thank you so much for coming on. This was excellent and great information and very timely. So thank you for all of that. In the chat box, that information that the mayor was talking about, we put the link to selectcobb.com/grants. And you can go there now to apply for those funds. And please continue to stay tuned to the Smyrna Business Association.org website for more information and updates. As our leaders continue to give us information, we'll disseminate that to you all. So thank you so much once again. This was amazing. So I really appreciate everyone for their input. And at this time, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.